Hey everybody, back with another video. It's been a while since I've done one of these, but I thought what I might do is do an updated version of the original tier list I made a little while back for the beginner LD5s, and I thought this time I'll make it more of a general use scenario. So it's not going to focus just on beginner teams and for beginner players. It'll be across the board, but it will be a balance of every scenario that you can use them in. So it's not specifically aimed at one thing. It'll be for PvE, PvP, so it'll be Siege, it'll be dungeons, TOA, RTA, arena offense, arena defense. I'm not going to go through each one by one, but I will try to cover most of the units here. I'm not going to cover any fusion units, and to be honest, I haven't used any of the newer units, any of the light dark newer units yet, so I won't be putting them in there because I don't know enough about them. I haven't used them firsthand to be able to say, whether they're actually good or not. General consensus is they are pretty, some of them are pretty good, but some of them are pretty standard. The new Dokaba Lord is a fusion anyway. There are plenty of people who have covered already the light one as well, and the Devil Maidens as well have been pretty much covered by everyone. Now this tier list does have every element, but I'm just going to do the light and dark. So without further ado, let's get started. I'll try to go in order just to sort of have a balance so I know what I'm doing and I don't get lost. So let's start off first with the light chicken. The light chicken isn't too bad. Not much usage. Not one particular. It's not good at one particular thing. It's okay at a few different things, but it's not amazing at one particular thing. So I'd probably say a 75, maybe for her. Yeah, I'd say probably a 75. Could probably be a little bit higher or a little bit lower, but 75 I think where it is at. The Dark Ninja Han. He is a fantastic unit for RTA. We all know that ever since he got buffed a little while back. He's pretty much one of the highest used units. Great win rate. Outside of RTA, I don't know if I would use him anywhere, but it is fantastic for RTA, so I will probably put him at maybe at an 80. And again, keep in mind, this is based on their general usage. So it's not focused on RTA, it's not focused on PvE or PvP, it's general usage. So let's keep going. The Light Dragon, great unit for PvE. Probably wouldn't use him too much for PvP or arena or siege or anything like that, but he is a great monster to have, especially if you're lucky enough to get one. It will help you through a lot of your PvE content. So I'd probably put him at 80 as well. The Light Valkyrie. Okay, so she's good-ish. I don't know if I would be excited if I got her, but she does serve a purpose. I don't know if I would probably use her for any content more than something else. I'll probably put her at about 70 at the moment. Now keep in mind again, everyone, this is completely subjective, so this is my opinion in what I think would be where each unit is based. Someone else's opinion might be completely different. Julianne got buffed recently. Fantastic for RTA. So he essentially cleanses at the beginning of every turn. He still has his previous passive as well, where upon death he absorbs the HPs of allies and stays alive. So he's probably a little bit harder to kill now. Don't know if I would use him in any PvE content, but PvP he is very good. So I'll put him on 85. Cadiz is an amazing monster in PvE. I don't really think anyone uses him in PvP. I don't think he can really be used in PvP. He's got attack bar absorb. He's got a branding. I think he heals the whole team as well. AOE heal, or is it an attack bar increase? No, I think it's an AOE heal. Sorry, I haven't used him in a long time, so I can't even remember what he did. But nevertheless, for PvE content, he is phenomenal. So I would probably put him as overall. I would probably put him at 80, just because how much he brings to PvE. But because he doesn't bring enough to PvP, he can't be on the same category as Julian. So who do we have next? Shan. Shan is one of the most popular and most sought after units in PvP. Great for RTA. He's got that AoE stun. Now the thing about that AoE stun is he doesn't actually need to hit you to pull that off. So if you're up against, say, a lighter Namusha who revenges every time he gets hit, or Ragdoll, who increases attack bar every time you get hit, he's a great unit. PvE, again, not much usage. Squall is a move that hits really hard, but apart from that, if you do have him for PvE, you would always feel like you're missing his third. His third probably isn't too effective in PvE. There's no point where you would use it and say, hey, wow, this is really effective against the dungeon boss, or could be effective against some floors in TOA, but it probably wouldn't be high enough for me to rate him as as a PvE unit. I'd probably say it's more of a PvP unit. I would probably say, though, for what he does in PvP, he is probably in the same bracket as Julian. Zaratu, the Dark Chimera. I think. See, the Dark Chimera is a hard one because his first move, his first skill, puts dots. His passive allows him to hit 2 more times if you crit, which means that you could potentially put about 3 dots on a unit. So great for dungeons. Having said that, he doesn't have an AoE, so he will probably slow down your dungeon run quite a bit, and he's very heavily reliant on your crit, so you do have to build him with enough crit rate to make sure he crits every time if you want to pull off those extra dots. The extra two attacks. I'd probably say, as he's okay for PvE, probably wouldn't use him too much in PvP. I'd probably say 75 is where I would put him. Artemiel and Fermion. Artemiel was at one point one of the best units in the game. He pretty much had built-in revenge. It was amazing if you built him on Despair. I don't feel like he's relevant anymore. Alongside Fermion, I don't think these two have been relevant in a long time. Definitely not PvE units, and in PvP, they're pretty well much counted by a lot of different units. I'll probably be putting both of them at about 50. Who else do we have? Lima. Lima's a good unit. She's had a couple of nerfs recently, but overall she's still a decent unit in what she does. Probably not a PvE unit, more of a PvP unit, but still relatively good. Don't know if I would rate her that high, but I would probably rate her at about 75. Probably does a bit more than these two, but I don't think she contributes as much as your Cadiz or your Zorath or your Han. So I'd probably put her at 75. If there was a tier in between, I would probably put her there, but I don't want to build too many tiers, so I'll probably say she's a 75. She's more of a 75 than she is an 80. Laura, after her buff and then after her nerf, I would probably put a 95. And the reason for that is even though her speed buff got nerfed to 1 turn rather than 2, it's still very useful. She does a team AoE defense buff as well. Her third also strips with every, has a chance to strip with every hit. Her second is another AoE with, I think it's stun and a attack slow. Now she is a unit that I would probably build on Despair, depending on what I'm using for her for, but a lot of people will probably build her on Revenge. Not Revenge, sorry, Violent. But she brings a lot to the table. So just with her 2 AoEs, I would probably build her on Despair. I feel like as an overall unit, as a general use, she's very effective in both PvE and PvP. Especially if you do build her on Despair, she could be relatively effective in stripping, for example, the the Giant's attack buff or the Dragon's immunity. She still does the attack slow as well for the towers. In TOA should be a pretty good unit. Overall, I think she's a 95. She's probably a 90 or a 95. I'd say she's definitely a 95. Her little sister, Nikki. Before we do her, we'll actually do Gianna. I felt like Gianna was a great unit at some point when she was for RTA. She was fantastic. She still is very good, but she's had a bit of a nerf over the years. She's still very good, but as an overall unit, and again, this is not just PvP, this is also PvE, I'd probably say she's about an 80 at the moment. That's where I would put her. At 80, yeah, I'd be happy. I'll be pretty happy with 80. Nikki is probably an 85. Now the thing about Nikki is one of her most effective things is that she does a heal block. She does an AoE heal block, which is very, very effective in TOA. It's very effective in RTA. Probably wouldn't be very effective in any of the dungeons, as far as I can remember. I don't believe any of them actually do heal. Oh, maybe I think the Dragons does. But then again, you don't want to be dragging out the battle that long that the Dragon has even a chance to heal. I think it was the Dragon. So I'd say she's probably an 85. She does have pretty high rune requirements. I don't know if as a starter unit you'd probably use her until well after you've got some decent runes. She unless you have pretty good runes, she probably doesn't hit as hard as you'd want her to either. So she's definitely more of a mid to late game unit, I would say. Next we have Asima. Asima I would put in the 80s. If this was a PvE tier list, I would probably put her in 95. She is very good. So her third has her third does dots. It does, I believe, attack bar decrease as well, and a defense break, or it's just a defense break and an attack bar. I can't remember, but she does dots are pretty much I think on her first and second anyway. She's got 2 AoEs. She's a great unit. She's fantastic for dot teams. So if you are building her for dungeons, she's really, really good. For TOA, she's very good. PvP, she probably doesn't have as much of a use. She's very easily countered. I mean, if you go up against anything with immunity, it's going to be very hard to to do anything. But overall, she is a good unit. She'd be a unit that I'd be happy to have. Especially if you are new and you're starting and you just want to progress quickly through PvE, then she is one of the best units that you could start off with. Probably, maybe bar one other unit, which we'll get to shortly. Cracker. Cracker is okay. I've never really found a use for her. I found there was always units that could do what she does. Pretty much the same without the need for such high rune requirements. So I'd say she's probably good for PvP in some instances. Would never use her for PvE. I would think she's absolutely useless for PvE. But overall, she's an okay unit. Jaeger, at some point he was okay. Now I don't know if he gets used. No AoEs, no real purpose, doesn't really belong anywhere. Still a good unit to have, but it's not someone you'd be excited for if you got definitely not like his other brother. Then we've got Kitian the Shang. Kitian the Shang I would actually put at 85, and the reason for that being he is probably one of the best CC monsters in the game. So In PvP, he is fantastic with the AOE sleep and the AOE slow. He's great. You probably don't need too much CC for PvE, especially in the beginning if you're doing dungeons or if you're doing TOA or even for PvP or anything like Siege, stuff like that. But in arena offense I think is fantastic. Arena defense I think is quite good. RTA he's really good, is where he shines, but he is a unit you could use for PvE if you did have him, so that's definitely a solid option, and I think that's why he deserves to be in 85. He's definitely probably on par with these guys, and I feel like provides more in the PvP department than these would do. So overall I'd probably say he's an 85. Yeah, okay. Ragdoll I would put at 80. Absolute monster for RTA. So he's got the whole team attack increase when he gets crit on, so that's great. But the reason why I put him here is, even though he's not a PvE unit, his first skill does land dots. So if you were to use him, obviously he wouldn't be your first option, but if you have him, you could use him early on if you don't have that great runes, just in dungeons, you know, for things like that. Definitely he's not a farmer or anything like that, but I think his passive does too much and he's too effective in RTA to say he's anything less than that. So I would probably put him in 80. Let's see who else we got. Yen Hong. Yen Hong is, yeah, I don't know. See, this is a hard one. Yen Hong is amazing in RTA. I don't know if she has any purpose anywhere else. I mean, I would probably put her at 75. If this was a PvP tier list, again, she would definitely be up there. No, I can't do that. I'll put her at 80. But in a PvP, in an overall tier list, I'd probably say she's at an 80. Just don't think she brings as much to both aspects of the game. Yeah. Dark Monkey, who I missed, I would probably put about 70. Again, good. More of a niche unit. Wouldn't really know where to use him. He's definitely more PvP, not PvE unit at all. The Dark Sky Dancer as well, I'd probably say maybe a 70 or a 75. Just overall probably a 75. Yeah, overall a 75. Still a good unit, just not as effective in every aspect of the game. Light Pioneer, I don't really rate him high enough. I don't rate his brother high enough either. I don't think they really contribute as much as some of the other LDs do for an LD5. I think is pretty standard. Probably someone I'd be disappointed. Either one of these two I'd be pretty disappointed if I got. I know they are good. They serve a purpose, and that's all they do, and they are only good for that specific thing. Okay, who do we have next? So we have the Light Polar Queen. Light Polar Queen is very similar in what she does to Yen Hong. So she essentially readies the skill of an ally. So she's good to have for PvP. She's definitely good for RTA. Could probably use her in arena if you wanted to. Not very effective in PvP. But in contrast to that, the Dark Polar Queen is very effective in PvE. However, probably not as useful in PvP, so therefore I will have to balance it out and put them both at 75. Now I could probably do Molly as well, but I do want to stick to LD5s, so I'm going to go with Pontos. Now Pontos I will put at 80. Yeah, actually, Pontos I'll put at 85. His third skill does invincibility and it does immunity. His second skill does AoE silence, and his first skill transfers any, I believe, 2 debuffs that you have on yourself to the enemy. So overall, he's very good in PvP. He is also very usable in PvE. So actually having that immunity and having that invincibility, I think it is, that he does, is very effective. He'll keep your team alive with his third if he needs. Not an ideal unit to use for dungeons or TOA, but definitely can be used. His rune requirement probably isn't that high for what it does. I feel like he's more of a, he is a support monster more than an attacking monster or anything like that. I mean, if you're using him for RTA and you're competing at the highest level, then his rune requirements will be quite high. But if you're just starting off, he's definitely a decent enough unit to have. Now guys, this is taking a bit long, so I'm going to just go through the rest pretty quickly, and then if there's any questions or any discussions, please feel free to post in the comments. I will try to respond to every single one, or if others see this, they can also respond. I'm sure everyone will have an input and will have an opinion. So where am I? I don't know why the dark one isn't here. That's strange. Nevertheless, the dark one, Man and An, I would probably put about 75. Contrary to what a lot of people believe, I actually think he's very, very useful in PvE. Maybe not so useful in PvP, but I think he's, especially with his recent buff, he's actually very, very good in PvE. So he's one of the top units that I would use in PvE. Next unit, we've got the Light Anubis. The Light Anubis got a massive buff. Fantastic. I feel more PvP orientated than PvE, so I would probably put him there. He's an LD4. Nephthys is one of the only units that I would probably put up here. Now the reason why I would put her up here is because she has a heal block, she has a defense break, she has an attack break, and she has an AoE silence. Even though she got nerfed with only an 80% chance to silence the enemy with debuffs, she is usable everywhere. She's usable everywhere. She is a support unit, so you're not looking for her to do much damage. So again, her rune requirements are a little bit less. You want really fast HP, decent accuracy. I personally like putting a little bit of attack on mine as well, just to just to hit, do a bit of damage when she does hit, especially with a second. That's an AoE. Isis, great unit for PvE. Probably, PvP. Probably not so much for PvE, but I would put her at about 80. I feel like she does more than these guys do, but probably wouldn't put her in an 85. I don't feel like she's an 85. Oberon and Nynx, definitely PvP orientated, and even then, very niche units. Wouldn't mind having them if you're late game, but as an early game, I feel like they are absolutely useless. So it just depends how your style is. So if you're planning on starting a game with an LD5, you have to decide whether you want that LD5 to carry you through late game, or whether you're happy to use monsters and then when you get to late game have a very good LD5 that you can use in RTA and etc. So depending on what your play style is, but for me, I would not really want to start with either one of these two. They wouldn't contribute anything until I'm very, very late game, and by then you'd have a plethora of different monsters that could probably do similar, not the same, but similar. Who's next? So Tian Lang. This is a tough one because Tian Lang is probably, I'd say, the best unit in PvP. Just what his passive gives you is amazing. His second is an AoE, plus I think every hit does a different debuff. That's if you landed. Obviously, it's still going to be there's a percentage, and then there's an accuracy check as well. Look, overall, not a unit that you would probably use for PvE, but a fantastic unit to have down the track for PvP. So I will probably put him at 85. If his second was an AoE, there'll be no question about it. He'll be 85, probably even be higher, but then he would be absolutely broken. So I feel like 80 is probably the best place to be. Oh, and Nephthys also has a attack speed lead, which definitely puts her up in the 95 category. Who's next? Light Pony, probably say 70. Dark Pony, I would probably put at 75. Both good. PvP for the Light Pony, I don't think it's PvE at all. Dark one could probably be used in some aspects of PvE, but still again very PvP orientated. Still better units and better monsters that can do similar things as an all-round type thing. The Light Druid, in my honest opinion, is a 90 because he's got provoke, he's got attack bar increase, he's got a strip, so he's very versatile in what he does. He's absolutely brilliant in PvP. I have used him in PvE before as well. In some aspects of the game, he really comes through. So, not probably something not you want to build, not something that you want to focus on building straight away, but he will come in handy when you're in when you're stuck in a bit of a situation and you sort of just need that little bit extra. He definitely comes through. So the Light Druid, I think, actually does give you more than these guys do, and considering how effective he is in PvP and that he can be used in PvE, I'd probably put him at 90. The Dark one, I'd probably put at 50. I don't think he's used in PvP, definitely can't be used in PvE, hasn't been relevant for a long time. I don't know if it's relevant now, but I highly doubt it. So I would definitely put him at 50. I don't think I would put anyone in the meme category. I think everyone serves a purpose. It's just, it's just what they do. Like a lot of people would rate Tiana as one of the highest units in the game. For me, Tiana is absolutely useless in PvE. In PvP, she serves one purpose, and that's just to make sure you strip everything. And after that, that's it. That's all she does. She does that one thing, and she does it amazingly well. So for me, she probably isn't the most top tier unit because she just does that one thing. Her purpose is to do one thing, and even though she does it fantastically, I couldn't see myself putting her at a 90 or 85 because she just doesn't have enough utility. So who do we have next? Dark Panda. Dark Panda is actually quite good. Dark Panda is really good in PvE. Probably wouldn't use him too much in PvP. I think he did get buffed a little while ago as well. Did make him a little bit better, but I'd probably put him at about 75. Dark Heart Magician, probably put at 70. The light one probably at 70 as well. Bella. Bella's a tough one. Bella I'd probably put at 80 just because of the absolutely ridiculous amounts of damage she does and her extra hits. So they are very effective, especially if you've paired her with the right team, or if you've lucky enough to have her with someone who increases damage output like a Lucifer or something like that as well. She would absolutely be insane and crazy to use. Let's see who is next. They also don't have Lucifer on this list either by the looks of it. So look, Lucifer for me would probably be a, you know what, let's use him for Lucifer. So Lucifer for me would be overall an 80. Now the reason is he is probably the best unit in PvE. There's no question about that. He'll get you through the entire game. Not the entire game, he'll get you through the entire PvE part of the game. He's a great starter unit to have. He will carry you for pretty much most of it. Not the best in RTA unless you're pairing him with a Leo. So he can do the the attack bar increase and the attack damage increase for the interrupts. He's fantastic for arena offense. One of the best units I would use for arena offense. But other than that, I don't feel like he serves much of a purpose. So Lucifer would be 80. Beelzebub PvP orientated but fantastic. Overall though, I don't know if definitely brings to the table the same as, say, in my opinion, Gianna or Cadiz do. So I'll probably put him at 80 as well. Nasha at 80. Nasha doesn't have an AoE, but her passive and what she does is really good, really effective. So she can actually strip, and I think they changed the strip to now it changes it to a dot. Although I can't remember if that was her or someone else. But Still great. Still very useful. Probably not so much in PvE, just because she is a single target damage dealer. But definitely a good PvP unit. Can be used in PvE if you need, but she does have high rune requirements. So she needs a lot of speed. She needs accuracy, and she definitely needs a lot of attack, crit rate, crit damage to to make it very effective, to get the best out of her, I suppose. Lightning Empire, sorry, Emperor, I'll probably say, yeah, about a 70. Haven't really used him in a long time. Don't know if I ever would be interested in using him again. Don't feel like much has changed. Although I forgot Dark Beast Rider. The Dark Beast Rider will probably be about, overall, probably about a 75, maybe even a 70. Let's see, who else have we got? So we got Van Cleef, which is also the Dark Ryu. Not great at, probably not the most popular in PvP. Definitely not very used in PvE. But I feel like he does provide more than Jaeger does, or Nyx, or Oberon. So I'm going to put him in the 70 list. The Art Masters go straight into 70 for me. They have some niche skills. If you use, can't even remember his name now. The Light Art Master, he will actually, I think actually that's the Wind one, but I don't think they have the Light one on this list, so we're just going to stick with the Wind one as the Light one. He will stop passives from being taken into effect, but only on his third skill. So the Dark and Light Slayer. The Dark Slayer was once one of the most feared units, along with the Dark Bison. He got ridiculously nerfed, and they completely broke him, and no one uses him, and no one wants to use him any longer because he's not really effective anywhere. So he goes at 50. The Light and Dark Omugis are pretty good, but I think overall I'll probably put them both at a 75, maybe a little bit higher. Yeah, I'd probably say, look, I'm happy with a 75. Now, I am going to include an LD4 in here just because of how good this LD4 actually is, in my opinion. In my opinion, it is the best LD4. It is probably the only LD4 I would put at 100. But in this list, obviously, I'm not going to put him at 100. But that is Kinky, the Light on Amusha. And for me, as an overall unit, I feel like he's about an 85. He's got the AoE hit. He's got the Endure. I think it's Endure, where it stops him from dying if he kills an enemy. The most important thing is his passive, which is every time he gets hit, he will counter. So if you do have him built on, say something like Despair, you have a very high chance of landing a lot of those stuns. Depends how you build him, and depends what you're using him for, but I think he is one monster that would actually be 85, which makes me quite sad to actually say that Ongyuki, the Dark Onimusha, a couple of months ago I would rate him at about a 90 or 95 when he had that 30% extra damage. Now, for a unit that doesn't crit, to take away that extra damage makes him, in my opinion, not as effective. He's still good, not as effective. He will only deal extra damage if he has an inability effects, or if he's stunned, if he's frozen, or if he's asleep. He's not affected by them. He will just wake up, or he will just get out of it. He will still take the turn, and he'll deal 50% more extra damage. I believe it's 50. So he is good, but if this was a few months ago, I would definitely rate him as high as, say, Volantis or Nephthys or Laura. But unfortunately now, I think even now, I'd probably put him more at an 80 than I would an 85. But I'm just to be generous, I'll probably put him in 85. But realistically, I think he's an 80. Actually, I'm going to put him in an 80. And as much as it hurts for me to say that an LD4 is actually better than its LD5 counterpart, I think Kinky does give you more versatility in where you can use him. Whereas Ongyuki, even though he is a great defense breaks on his third, that big nerf to his passive for a unit that doesn't crit it was a bit of a big one. So I think he's dropped down quite a bit. Um, Moving on to Kiki, the Dark Mage. The Dark Mage I would put at 80 as well. So the Dark Mage is a very good unit because every time she takes a turn, she will land a random debuff. The problem with her is in PvP, when you're versing, when you're up there in the higher tiers, you'll tend to find that most units are on will, which means it makes her AOE debuff completely useless. But she can still be very useful if you know what you're doing or in the right comp. She's definitely good for PvE. If you pair her up with a Zyros or if you pair her up with a Crow, so any unit that does extra damage based on the amount of debuffs on the enemy, she is king. She is queen. She will just make things so much easier if she's paired up and if you've got the right runes on the monsters. But she is a great unit overall. Don't know where the light one is, but the light one I probably wouldn't rate that high anyway. Probably be in the 60, maybe. If there was a 65 tier, probably be in the 65 tier. But I probably will put her in 60 since we don't have a 65. Otherwise, these two, okay. They're a good unit. They're very, very PvP. But for later game, I feel like they are more effective than these guys. If you've got the right runes, if you know how to use them, they are a little bit more niche again. But I don't rate one higher than the other. Like I said, they've each got their own usage, in my opinion, and what they bring. But I don't see them being as effective as these in all round competition. The Totemists for me, I will probably put them in the meme, but I said I wouldn't, so I'm not going to put them in the meme. But they are absolutely useless. I don't know what they do. I don't think for an LD5 it's an absolute joke. They both need a massive buff to be effective. So moving on, we'll go to Maximilian. Maximilian I put at 95, and the only reason why I put him at 95 is because he blocks buffs. So this is quite, now contrary to what a lot of people think, he's actually quite good for PvE. The issue with Maximilian is his rune requirements are so high that whilst you're progressing through PvE, you probably won't have very good runes to get the best out of him. He still will be very good with the runes that you get from the Summoner's Way and stuff like that. He will still do damage, but he'll be slow. His accuracy will be low. He probably won't crit as much. He'll still do some damage, but his debuffs will at least be effective, and his attack bar absorb. So I see him and Nephthys essentially to me are pretty much the same unit. This guy has 2 AoE attacks, so I definitely always build him on Despair. Again, someone else might build him in differently for a different comp. Nephthys has the silence on her passive, but this guy has 2. Otherwise, they'll both do similar things. So I think they both have attack break, they both have defense break. I think Maximilian also does dots as well. I haven't used him in a while, but I know overall he's a fantastic unit. Definitely a great one to have, but hard to rune. So because of that, I'm not going to drop him down to 90 because he's hard to rune, but he is as effective as Nephthys in my opinion in early game and late game. Don't have Benedict, the light one, on the list. I'm actually missing quite a lot. I probably should have gone through it first to see what was missing and then added it in, but nevertheless we're here now. So Benedict I probably would put at about 70 or 75 as well if we had him here. You know what, let's put the win one as Benedict. I'll probably put Benedict at about 70. Could be useful for PvP, definitely not useful very much for PvE. Yeah, I'll be pretty happy with that. Let's go with Veronica. Veronica, when she came out, she was essentially a Gianna on steroids. So she did I think she was an AoE. I believe she had an AoE strip, and then on top of that, she stunned. Her second had AoE dots. She was just very, very, very overpowered. They nerfed her, so now she only removes one debuff of each enemy. Everything else is essentially still the same. I don't believe much has changed. So I probably would put her at about an 80, to be honest. Now, guys, also keep in mind, this is in no particular order. So, say 85, I don't rate Julian higher than Shan. It's just the way they were on the list. I think they will all probably be equally as important, as good, or as bad on the list. So this order means absolutely nothing. Destiny, very good for PvP, not useful at all for PvE. So she'll go into the 70. Dark Hollyberry, I'd probably put her at about 80. She can be used in PvP. She's very good in PvP, and she's also very good. She's a very defensive unit. Can be used in PvE as well, if need be. Definitely as useful as the other units there. With I don't know where I would put these. The dark one I would probably put at about 75. The light one I have absolutely no idea if she was even useful, so I'll probably put it 60. The shadow casters for me very PvP based. They don't serve a purpose in PvE. The dark one I would probably put about 70, and the light one I would probably put about 65. Don't have a 65, so I'm gonna put him there at 60. Let's see what else we got. The light Hollyberry cookie, I'll probably put it 60 as well. Sorry guys, I know I've skipped this a little bit, but I was supposed to go in order, but definitely haven't been doing that. Kovaci, the light puppeteer, for me is at about 60. Very niche use in PvP, definitely not used in PvE. And Zenisek, the dark one, got a buff, so she is actually more usable in PvP. Still definitely not in PvE, but she'll be at about a 75 with what she brings to the table now. So Ivor, the light Ivor, got another buff. Again, probably not as good at PvE, just because she's a single target unit, but she does turn cycle quite a lot. She gets a turn every time an enemy takes a turn, or if you take a turn, and I think she now strips with every hit as well. So she is good to have, especially late game, especially for that RTA. But that's probably where I would put her at about 80. Ezio. I don't know where I would put. Guys, I'm probably not gonna do the Dark Cassandra and say the Altair or the Light Ezio or any of those units. Even though they are good, I will do the Dark Eivor. I think the Dark Eivor for me is about a 75, maybe a 70, probably 75. Just that sort of random hit on her third, I think, is a bit RNG. It doesn't serve a purpose. Light Thunderer, I would probably put at 75. I think it is a unit that has potential. It needs a few buffs here and there, but definitely useful. And I probably would put the dark one at 75 as well. This one's HP based, so it is still good. I mean, I did realize that I haven't actually put anyone at 100, and the reason why I've done that is I don't actually believe anyone is as high as 100. If I did have to absolutely put someone at 100 where I think that they excel in every single aspect of the game, as far as I'm concerned, I don't believe any of them do that. The new units aren't even on the game. Like I said, the Devil Maidens aren't there, and the new Dekabi Lord and whatever her name is, they're not there either. But if I felt like I had to put anyone on this list at 100, just for the sake of having something at 100, in my honest opinion, it would probably be Nephthys. I just feel like she brings way too much to the game. That AoE silence on her second, if you can land it, that 80% is really good. but the fact that she can actually silence any enemy as long as they've got a debuff with an 80% chance is also really good, especially later game. Maximilian I would probably be pushing at about 100, but I just feel like his rune requirements are so high, he's so hard to rune, that I don't see him being as effective as Nephthys as quickly. So that's probably where I am, guys. Look, this tier list is very subjective. Everyone will have a different opinion. This is my opinion based on, I've been playing this game for about 7 or 8 years now, so maybe a year after it started, I've sort of done the RTA, I've started new accounts, I've bought accounts, I've started fresh, I've done it all. I haven't had all of these units, but I've had the opportunity to play around with the majority of them, and I've played against the majority of them. So this is how I would probably look at it at this point, after the nerfs and after the buffs. But feel free to leave your opinion in the comments. Just keep it civil. Let me know what you think, and I shall be back later again with another tier list. Probably, maybe looking at an RTA tier list after the nerf and the buff. So until then, I will see you guys later.